What we've seen over the last few days is a small but revealing escalation in the migration story. A British flag activist network calling itself Raise the Colours has crossed into northern France, filmed itself destroying small boat engines and slashing dinghies, and has then moved to confront homeless migrants in Paris itself. The tabloid treatment, especially on November the 21st, yesterday, has been close to heroic, as if these men were doing the job of a reluctant state. Let's be blunt. This is vigilantism dressed up as patriotic theatre. It is not border policy, it's not rescue, it's sabotage and harassment with a high chance of getting people killed. Start with the beaches. The group's video show men digging up concealed outboard engines and smashing them. They frame this as Operation Stop the Boats or Operation Overlord, tossing around wartime language and inviting firms of football hooligans to join in. That matters not because it's theatrical, but because it is a recruitment pitch to organised violence. When you tell lads in pubs to come over and finish the job, you are not offering civic help. You are trying to create a roaming street militia. And the practical danger is obvious. Smugglers work fast. If engines are destroyed, they don't shrug and go home. They improvise. They launch in worse weather, from worse sites, with worse equipment. You push an already lethal trade further into panic mode. The likely result is not fewer crossings, but more chaotic ones and more drownings. That is why even French Coast Guard unions and officials have been warning for weeks that aggressive tactics turn the channel into a graveyard are simply... This is the problem. These tactics are wrong. And now France itself is flirting with a parallel escalation. On November the 19th, French authorities confirmed plans to trial nets dropped to snare propellers of small boats, beginning with so-called taxi boats near shore. The stated aim is to disable engines safely. Yet French maritime professionals have said clearly there is no safe way to do this on fragile inflatables, especially in surf or low visibility. So we are in a grimly symmetrical moment. The state is drifting towards riskier interception tools, while self-appointed British patriots treat the same coastline as their private action set. Each radicalises the other. So moving from the dunes to Paris, the newer videos published around November the 21st show two members filming African migrants in street camps shouting Africa at black men from a car, interrogating people about where they come from, and then falsely accusing one man of holding a knife while his hands are empty. This is not even border vigilantism anymore. It is racialized street intimidation exported to another country for clicks and donations. So why the near adulatory coverage in some tabloid papers? Partly because a simple storyline sells, brave locals versus villainous smugglers in an out-of-control border. But there is also political convenience here. If the public is furious, a vigilante spectacle gives them a proxy to cheer. It permits the fantasy that if only real men were in charge, boats would stop. That fantasy is intoxicating. It's also false. And Shabana Mahmood gave an interview that I saw yesterday on Instagram, I think, where she was talking to somebody who came here as a migrant, has really done very well, and he was saying, well, why are you putting up these these laws which are going to make it so much harder and so much longer for migrants who come here to integrate with our society? And she started talking about illegal migration. That wasn't actually the question he asked. Illegal migration is becoming the tool to sort out the problem. And the problem is not necessarily a problem. It's simply something that the dog whistles from the far right have identified as an issue. Because the problem is not the problem is not who is here, who is helping with our care sector, with our hospitals. It's about rage. And there isn't a shortage of rage. The problem is the structure of incentives and routes. Most people in these boats are not casually testing British resolve. They are fleeing wars, repression or destitution, and they believe the UK is their best remaining option. The Times reporting from Gravelines this month shows the sheer scale of the camps and the durability of the push factors. Smash an engine today and by nightfall another engine appears, another launch happens, another set of people take a risk. There's a legal point here too. These men are British nationals operating on French soil, destroying property, confronting vulnerable people and possibly committing assault. French prosecutors in Dunkirk have already opened a preliminary investigation into aggravated violence linked to suspected British far-right figures operating on the coast. It's hard to imagine a clearer description of what a state should not tolerate from foreigners on its territory. If France decides to make examples, nobody should be surprised. The Home Office seems to grasp the risk, even if some tabloids don't. After the Paris videos, officials issued a warning telling anti-migrant activists not to travel to France to take part in vigilante action. The line was simple: taking the law into your own hands will not resolve the issue. Quite right. And a rare moment of understatement. It will not resolve because it is not aimed at resolution. It is aimed at performance, fundraising, and the slow normalization of racial policing by amateurs. That normalization is the deeper threat. Once you accept the premise that random men can decide who is welcome, you are no longer in a democracy with borders. You are in a society where intimidation is outsourced to whoever shouts loudest. Hope Not Hate, tracking the rise of this kind of street patriot activism, warns that these groups survive on online acclaim and the sense of impunity. Exactly. If the public sphere treats them as folk heroes rather than criminals, the next step is predictable: bigger numbers, harder tactics, someone injured or dead, and then the inevitable claim that the victim brought it on themselves. There is also a cruel irony. These activists say they are repelling rapists and murderers, yet they are the ones invoking hooligan firms, mob language, and wartime myths to justify violence. The moral inversion is complete. The lawbreaker calls himself the law. A sensible migration policy has to begin with safety and legality. Safety for those at sea and along the coast, and legality for citizens angry at the state. If you want fewer boats, you need fewer reasons to board them and fewer profits for smugglers. That means fewer asylum decisions, credible returns for those who do not qualify, and crucially workable legal routes so people are not funneled into dinghies as their only doorway. It also means Anglo-French cooperation that doesn't pretend dangerous stunts are solutions. Funding and policing agreements may be imperfect, but they are at least accountable. Vigilantes are neither. I think the previous Conservative administration got it deeply wrong. I think the present administration under Shabana Mahmood is getting it deeply wrong. And the common denominator here, I'm afraid, is the Home Office. I feel sure that there will be people in the comments section calling me a committed lefty. And I'm not at all. But I am committed to the rule of law, and I am committed to finding solutions. I think the biggest solution here is an international solution to redraft and rework and reconsider the 1951 Refugee Convention so we define more accurately for the 21st century what qualifies as a genuine refugee. That way we can almost certainly turn people back before they even get into the question of journeying across the Channel to Britain. Then I think we need to set up and find resources to have centres in France, on the northern shore of France, so that people no longer need to cross the Channel. That requires greater cooperation with France, because this idea of the French policing the Channel is nonsense. It endangers the people who are policing, it endangers the refugees who are anxious, it endangers the smugglers who are predatory and criminal. Everybody is endangered. We need to strip out that route completely. And the only way to do that, as far as I can see, is not with threats, but with an alternative. And that alternative is a series of centres that would-be refugees can access. That would then mean holding centres on the north coast of France, and that would require quite considerable negotiation with the French authorities, but that is the right way forward. And if we could initiate a proper international conference to deal with the problem of migration, both legal and illegal, then we would be doing the world a favour, because we're not the only country that claims to be troubled by this. And trying to go it alone, trying to work out a unilateral, a single state solution to a multi-state problem, is simply trying to hold the sea back. It's a Canute issue, and we can't do it. Priti Patel didn't succeed, Suella Braverman didn't succeed, Jenrick didn't succeed, Shabana Mahmood will not succeed. The Home Office needs to, in addition, get its act together and start processing applications. The go slow, otherwise known as the hostile environment, championed by Blunkett, was wrong in its inception, was wrong in its definition by Theresa May, and is wrong today. It's simply an excuse for indolence, laziness by the Home Office. So many of our problems are neither left nor right. They are simply the product of a lazy ministry that doesn't know what it's doing, that is unaccountable. You can't contact the Home Office. You can't hold it to account. Even members of Parliament cannot contact the Home Office. So yes, people are frustrated. Yes, the Channel situation is unsustainable, but the answer is not to cheer men who treat human beings like a nuisance to be chased off a beach or a pavement. The answer is not nets that may capsize boats in surf. The answer is hard, boring statecraft and a moral line that says, if you want to change the law, do it through politics, nationally and internationally, not through a hammer on an engine and a camera in a frightened man's face. If we lose that line, we do not merely lose control of the border, we lose control of ourselves.